G'day poker people, today I'm going to show you how to win a progressive knockout tournament in a live format. The One Eye Jacks in Sarasota were running this great tournament where once you knock someone out, you win half of the bounty that they have on their head in real cash, real time. It gets paid out. Then the other half of their bounty goes on your head. So if someone knocks you out, they win more money. It's a really cool, interesting format that was previously almost exclusive to online poker, but my boy Anthony over at Punt Gaming has designed some brand new tech that helps progressive knockout format run in live poker. So we got a deep run to show off how to play these things. So let's get to gambling. Let's go. We are into my first ever live progressive knockout tournament. Really interesting format. There's just so much incentive to be the one responsible for knocking someone out. And the further and further we get in the tournament, that only becomes more and more true. So let's hop into this thing. Very first hand, we look down at Pocket Kings. What a warm welcome to the tournament. I raise it up to 300 bangers at the 100 level, and then the button calls before an unloaned small blind 3-bets me to 600, so a little min click when the action's back on me. With the button still left to act, it's just a mandatory no-brainer 4-bet spot here. I decided to use a larger size just because I think the small blind probably is 3-betting with a strong hand. You know, not aces or anything. I think he might have raised larger, but if he has a pocket pair, I think he's going to call. If he has ace king, I think he's going to call. So I want to get a bit greedy here. I go ahead and make it 3,600 bangers, and then the button folds, and then the small blind thinks about it for a little bit before folding, unfortunately. And as he mucks, he says, a nice pocket pair. It's a good read, mate, but I'm not going to complain. We're raking in the first pot. Let's keep the momentum up. The blinds are moving quick here at the 100, 200 level, and the hijack open limps before I'm in the small blind with Queen 6 of diamonds, and I actually raise it to 1.2k, and I'm really just trying to take down the pot pre-flop, win the money from the blinds and the limper. I want to accrue as many chips as early as possible in this type of tournament, because I want to be able to take more risks without risking my tournament life when I'm calling people shoves or I'm going all in on people, just because you're going to make so much EV off of stacking people in a bounty format, so I need a big stab to do that profitably. So winning these small pots really matters. I make it 1.2k, and then much to my chagrin, both the big blind and the limper call. Whatever the case, we are 3 ways to a flop of ace jack 6 with 2 diamonds. I'm going to start things off with a check. Not super interested in stabbing multi-way on an ace high board. I check it, and we do get a free turn when the action checks through, which is the bloody 4 of diamonds. Let's go. We turn the flush. Let's start building this pot. I go ahead and bet 3k, and then the big blind calls. So it heads up to a river, which is the bloody ace of hearts, and the reason this is a beautiful river, we're going to win a massive pot if the villain did check an ace X on the flop, and I've got 27.8k left in my stack, and if I think about it rationally, if the villain showed me an ace, there is no size I will bet to try and bluff them off of that. So I think the only move here is to rip it all in, trying to get a full double up through an ace X hand. So that's what I do. I'm 28k in the middle. Unfortunately, the villain does cover me, so we're not competing for a bounty in this one, but I think we can get a full double. I rip it all in, and the villain is in the tank 60 seconds, which probably means they have an ace, and she even says out loud, I think I'm beat, but I can't fold this hand, and then she calls, let's go. I show my hand, the villain shows ace king. Wow, she had the nutted ace, and we get a full double up early on, and we're doing a good job of running up a big stack. Let's go. So we have a very healthy stack moving into the 200, 300 level, and then a short stacked button with 3.8k, and their stack limps on the button, and then I'm in the big blind with ace 10 offsuit. And now I would love to get all in pre-flop with this hand and try and collect the villain's $100 bounty, but I think the fact that they limped rather than raising the button, and they probably do have a weaker range, so I think it's a good spot to raise a bit smaller, try and keep in their weaker range, and hopefully we can stack them post-flop. So I decided to raise this one to 1.5k, and then the villain does throw in the call. So we are heads up to a flop, which is 996 with 2 diamonds. Now the play here absolutely is to check it over to the villain. If we go ahead and rip it all in here, we're going to be very hard pressed to get called off by a better hand. So if we check it here and we check call a shove, then we actually have more chance of winning their bounty. So I check it over to them. Unfortunately, they do check back. Turn is the 3 of spades. I'm sticking with the same plan I had on the flop. I think it's a no-brainer no-brainer check here. I check it over to them. They finally rip it in for 2.3k. We throw in the snap call. I think we're going to be behind a lot here, but it's worth the risk trying to stack my opponent and win their bounty. So I throw in the call. There's 8k in the middle, but more importantly, the villain's $100 bounty is on the line, and then the villain shows a 7-3 offsuits. They are ahead for now, but we can hit an ace or a 10 to win, and then the river is the 8 of hearts. So no bounty just yet, but we are definitely going to keep fighting for it. Next hand, I pick up the best hand in all of poker, pocket aces. I raise it up and I end up triple barreling on a jack high board. Unfortunately, the villain does fold the river, so we are not able to collect their $100 bounty, but we're still building up a stack, and the same thing happens when we have a 6-4 of clubs, barrel, and the opponent folds the river, but we are raking in pots, and that's very good to keep the stack up because it just means we have more opportunity to stack people later. So we are absolutely rolling along into the 300, 500 level, and then I've got King 8 on the button, and we've got a very short stacked big blind in the mix with a $100 bounty, so I think I will be opening any hand here, trying to stack them. King 8 definitely falls into the category of any hand. I raise it up to 1k, and then the small blind with the bigger stack calls, and then the big blind does rip it all in for 1.5k, and now I think even though it is very tempting to 4-bet this as an ISO, I think it's a mistake. This is a great spot for the small blind to trap with a premium, knowing that it's very likely the big blind would shove, and I really just don't want to run into that monster and have to fold this hand. I think calling's a better play, and then we can assess if the small blind does 4-bet themselves. So I throw in the call here, and unfortunately the small blind only calls. So we're 3 ways to a flop. It's a dead side pot. We got the bounty on the line, and the flop comes down 5 King 8, baby. Let's go. We hit 2 pair when the small blind checks it over to me. Let's start trying to build a pot here. I go ahead and make it 2,000 chipperoonies. Small blind folds straight away, but we're loving it. We know it's very likely we're stacking the big blind. I show my hand. The big blind shows Jack 6 offsuit, and the board runs out clean for us, and we end up taking our first bounty of the tournament as well as the pot. You love to see it. I got to give a huge shout out to Anthony and Punt Gaming for these little tablets that display not only the cool animations for the knockouts that you just saw and the payout animations as well, just really cool fun stuff, but these tablets were actually great because they were displayed at the table for everyone to see, so you really knew what you were working with in terms of what bounties other players had, so you can make informed decisions when you're playing. Plus the graphics on the screens are cool as well, and the floor comes over and they pay us $50 for knocking out the other player, so we've got $50 in our pocket, but we've got another $50 on the screen, so the number on our back's even bigger. I win this cheeky little pot double barreling pocket 10s, and as always I'm tracking all of these hands on the Fastroll Poker app. It has a feature to track tournament hands as well as cash game ones, so no matter what type of poker you're trying to improve at, the Fastroll Poker app will help you out. Use the code LEADBETS for your first month free. This next hand is where things really get spiced up. 500, 1k, 1k for the blinds, and then there's 2 open limps before I'm in the small blind with 7-3 offsuit. Now I definitely do not think I should be folding this hand. I cover everyone on the table and I'm trying to win bounties. Maybe limping's a bit better than raising, considering it's very unlikely a tight big blind is going to raise us here. But I decide to raise it up. Let's lower the SPR. Maybe not the best play, but I go ahead and do it. I make it 5k here, and then I get ultimately punished for it when the under the gun player rips it all in for 24.5k. And then the action falls back to the cutoff limper, who ums and ahs for a few seconds before calling all in for 20k themselves. Now the action's back on me. Obviously we are behind with this hand. I think the under the gun player in particular probably has a very strong range. But here's the thing about bounty tournaments. If we are able to deliver a bad beat to both of these opponents, not only are we going to scoop in a massive pot ourselves, but we're literally going to get paid out $100 from both of the players' bounties. And I mean, ideally we would not want to risk 24.5k, but we have an 80k stack, so even if we do lose this pot, we're still going to be in a position where we can call light and stack people later. Like, we're just not risking that much of our tournament life on it. So you can probably see where this is going. Folding is boring. I throw in the call with 7 high. Everyone has to show their hand. I proudly table mine first. The under the gun player shows ace king, which is kind of ideal for us to be against that hand. I'd much rather have that than a pocket pair. But then the cutoff shows ace 7 suited, which is one of the worst hands for us to be against. Our 7 is no longer live. We need to hit a 3 until the board comes out ace 5-4. So now a 3 no longer good. Both the villains have top pair. We need to hit our gut shot to win. The turn is a 7 of clubs. Again, our pair is no good. Ace 7 actually sucks out on Ace King. They're ahead now, and we are going to need to see a 6 on the river and a 6 alone, and then the river is the 6 of clubs, baby. Let's go. We're dishing out an awful bad beat here to rake in this massive pot and 2 whole bounties. So that's $100 straight in our pocket, 100 more on our head, of course. But the bloke with Ace King was not happy at all. He was absolutely furious that I called with this trash hand, which is funny because I feel the exact opposite way about this situation. So we are running hot this session, and things stay on the same track when we open 9-7 from the cutoff and end up flopping trips. We end up triple barreling the hand, but unfortunately the villain does fold on the river. Still not going to be complaining though, things are going our way and you love to see it. This next hand, we are at the 1k, 2k, 2k level, so definitely the stack sizes are shrinking. So we're in the cutoff again with King 10 offsuit. I buff it up to 4k. Really like using min raises in tournaments. I think players are generally pretty inelastic, so we just want to realize fold equity for as cheap as possible in these low stake tournaments, in my opinion. So I make it 4k, and then so much for realizing fold equity, literally everyone calls. So a total of 4 ways to a flop of 10, 6, 5 rainbow. And then things get really interesting when the small blind leads out for 5k and the big blind folds. Now the small blind actually has a pretty big stack. They've only got 10k less than us, and they have a 350 bounty on their head. So of course that means there's so much incentive to call here, and of course I'm not folding top pair. I will say though, I do want to proceed with a lot of caution. This opponent is leading into 4 different people on a 10 high board. They can have all the sets on this board. They can easily have 6-5. They can have a better ace. They could have just flatted pre-flop with a better overpair, so there's definitely a lot of concern going forward, but I will not be folding yet, particularly with the extra incentive of potentially being able to stack them and win a huge bounty. So I throw in the call, the button folds, heads up to a turn, which is the 8 of spades, and this small blind keeps betting for 20k, so a very large bet, and honestly at this point in time I'm convinced I'm behind for sure. And this is just something you need to do in these low stakes tournaments. Like, opponents bet big when they have a huge hand. I guess there are a few draws on this board, like if the opponent has 7-8 they turn more equity, so there's more incentive to bluff, but most of the time it's more like they're just protecting with a really strong hand themselves. So I decided to make a pretty disciplined fold here. Do not want to get tangled up when I think the villain is much stronger, and we're just going to move on to the next hand. So we're trying to win chips back. We end up calling a literal min click 3-bet when we have position with 9-8 suited. It's actually kind of one of the worst suited connectors to call a 3-bet with, but we're not folding when we're getting a great price in position. We end up flopping top pair and calling a small c-bet. Then we turn trips when the villain checks it over to us. I think it's just very likely they have ace high. So I bet really small, trying to bait in a call. They do end up folding though. Whatever the case, we're raking in yet another fight, which seems to be the trend today. So we are building up a beautiful stack, raking in these smaller pots, and we're still in the 1k, 2k level before the action folds to my button with King 10 of diamonds, buff it up to 4k, and then both of the blinds call. So we're 3 ways to a flop of 9-9-7 with 2 diamonds. When the action checks to me, I actually think this is a great spot to check it back and take a free card. I think if the opponents have ace high or a pocket pair, they're not going to fold it, so we're kind of value earning ourselves a little bit by betting here, particularly into 2 people. So I check it back, taking the free turn, which is a 2 of clubs, no help for us. But when the small blind leads out for 6 and the big blind folds, I don't think we can be folding yet. If we do hit a flush on the river, I think we're going to be able to stack the opponent if they have a 9 or a good pocket pair. The implied odds of hitting are potentially not only a big pot, but also the opponent's 150 bounty. So I throw in the call. It's fingers and toes crossed we hit a diamond on the river, and then the river is the 3 of diamonds, baby. Would you expect anything less with how this session's been going? And then the opponent keeps betting, which you love to see. They make it 12k. The action's on me. If the opponent has a 9 or a worse flush, they are not going to fold. If they have like pocket 10s or pocket 8s, they probably will fold to a shove, but the EV of getting paid off, winning a 150 bounty is absolutely worth it. I rip it all in for 50k, and the small blind is in the tank about 30 seconds, and he does end up folding. Oh, you hate to see it. He says, I know you didn't have a 9, which I guess is a good read, but I wish he really believed that and called. So we're building up a monster stack. We have over 280k at the 1k, 2k, 2k level. So when I'm in the cutoff, probably going to be opening any hand, I go ahead and make it 4k with the King 8 offsuit. And then the button rips it all in for 45.5k with 150 bounty. It's the same villain from the previous hand. And then the small blind calls all in for less with 25k. Now when the action's back on me, I think the small blind probably has a very, very strong range. But I mean, to call off 45.5k, it's less than 1/6 the size of our stack. So even if we know that the small blind has a premium, I think it's still worth the risk to try and stack the button alone, whose range probably is a little bit wider. They probably have a bunch of just naked ace-x type stuff. So I throw in the call. We're chasing bounties yet again. The button shows ace-3 of diamonds, so we have two very live cards against them. And the small blind has ace-queen, so this is actually a great spot. They block each other's aces. If I hit a king or an 8, very likely I do win this hand. And then we have the run out there, and you can see no king, no 8, and the button hits a 3 on the river, so they're actually going to scoop this entire pot, and we miss out on the opportunity to win a bounty here. But I mean, we're not even hurting that much. We still have a monster stack and plenty more bounties to chase. Registration is over in this tournament and the field is narrowing down a lot. We get moved to a new table after the other one broke, where I'm in the hijack with pocket 2s at the 1.5 3k level. So I go ahead and raise this one up to 600 bangers, and then I get called by 3 different people. So a super multi-way to a pot will be great to flop a set here, and then the flop comes down ace 7-6 rainbow. So no deuces out there. I go ahead and check it over to the villains, who all check through. So we do get a free turn, which is a bloody 2 at diamonds. Let's go. We hit the set. We're running hot today. When the big blind checks it over to me, need to start building a pot. I don't think it's totally impossible that any of the villains checked an ace, which will probably call a pretty large bet here. I decide to make it 10k. Probably could go closer to something like 15k, might be a bit better. Whatever the case, I make it 10k. The cutoff calls, and then a tight aggressive button raises to 25. When the big blind folds, I'm honestly a little bit nervous. I think if the villain did have a better set, they probably would have played it like this. But if I give them credit for slow playing sets, they probably have ace-7 suited, ace-6 suited, even 7-6 suited. So I really don't think I can be going anywhere. And plus, we do cover the villain for a 100 banger bounty. So I rip it all in for 125. The cutoff folds, and then the button snap calls, and he fast rolls the pocket 7s. So there you go. We get set over set, and our momentum is turning around, perhaps. The river's a 5 of diamonds, so the villain's going to get us on this one. And now we're starting to hurt a little bit with our stack size. So I didn't get this next hand on camera. I made the mistake of kind of like needling the guy to my right next to me, and he actually asked me not to film while he was at the table. So my bad, guys. Probably should just be nicer to people at the table. Whatever the case though, the button goes ahead and opens it to 6k, and then the small blind rips it all in for about 15k. And I'm in the big blind with bloody pocket queens. I actually call the shove, trying to induce an overshove from the button, which bloody works. They rip it all in, so we have a 3-way all in. I have my queens. Small blind has jack 10 offsuit, so we're in great shape against them. The button does have ace jack though, so we are fading an ace, but then the board runs out really clean for us when we flop a set. We are running hot today after that set over set hand, and we end up raking in this big pot here, as well as collecting 350 worth of bounties. You love to see it. That's 175 straight in my pocket, and the number on my head is just building and building up, but we love it. So we're up to the 2k, 4k, 4k level before the same villain in middle position who set over set us opens it to 8. So when the action falls to my big blind, I'm going to be calling very wide here, getting a chance to play this pot. It's a little bit more dicey now that the villain covers us for they could win our bounty, but we still want to be in the mix getting such a good price. So I do throw in the call with jack 8 offsuit, and then we are heads up to a flop of jack 6, 8 with 2 clubs. We flop 2 pair. We can't miss a bloody flop today. So I check it over to the villain who c-bets for 12. Now this villain is very tight, so I think it's going to be pretty hard for us to double up through them, even if they do have a strong hand like an overpair. So I want to use a smaller raise size here just to try and lower the SPR against that type of hand, keep my villain's range a little bit wider. So I go ahead and make it 30 bangers here. Then the villain is in the tank a little bit before throwing in the call, so we love that we're getting action. The turn's a 3 of hearts, pretty blank turn for us. I think the play here probably is to continue down betting. I really think the opponent is able to fold an overpair here if we go too big. In game I decided to bet 42k. It's sort of a throwback to my 420 lucky number, but I mean there's too many zeros, it's not really a lucky number, which clearly becomes the case when the villain folds. So I think our lucky number is strictly 420, not 42,000. We do end up raking in this pot, and I just really hope we didn't get the villain off of an overpair. Next hand, the same player yet again opens middle position yet again to 8. I'm in the big blind with 8-6 of diamonds this time. Actually, a much better hand to defend with than Jack-8 offsuit. So I throw in the call, and we heads up to a flop of Ace-4-3 with 2 diamonds. Pretty good flop for us. I check it over to the villain, who goes ahead and c-bets for 10. Now I think we should definitely be check-raising him. I was worried about him folding overpairs in the previous hands. If he has an Ace-X, like, I don't think he's going to stack off unless it does have 2 pair or better. So great spot to check-raise as a semi-bluff. I just threw in the call here. I think this is a pretty silly mistake. Whatever the case though, we are off to a turn, which is the 5 of clubs. I check it over to the villain in flow, who checks back. So probably going to be stabbing at this river pretty aggressively. And when the river is the 2 of hearts, well shit, now we actually just have the second nuts here. And I think we need to bet a small size, honestly, to try and get called off by Ace-X. I go ahead and bet 42,000 again. What am I doing? This isn't, 42,000 is not my lucky number. It's 420. What am I doing here? And then the villain ends up tanking a few seconds before folding, and that's twice I've just gotten too greedy against this opponent. Just need to be using smaller sizes against tight opponents. If I was bluffing, I would like this size, but yeah, just need to adjust for going against tight opponents in this tournament. And adjust indeed we do, as I open 7 deuce offsuit from the higher jack, figuring I'm going to get a lot of folds. We're sort of at that later stage of the tournament where opponents are really trying to lock up their stack and just try and flow through to the final table, which is kind of my favorite part of tournaments, because they just leave like their blinds completely undefended. You can take down pots, and particularly when we had that read in the previous hand that the villain that has position on us was tight, we just really need to attack it. So I'm opening anything from the hijack, 7 deuce, and I end up taking down the pot with a small c-bet, even on a board that's awful for us. And then in the next hand that I play, it's 8-6 offsuit. I open it up again and take it down with another c-bet. And these, small pots might not seem like a big deal, but if you win a few, you really start to build up a stack, which is so important in a progressive knockout tournament, because you just want a big stack to be able to stack people to win their bounties. That's how you make money in these things, and we're doing a good job of it so far, not to toot my own horn too much. So at this point, we are down to the final 2 tables of the tournament, and we are at the 3K, 6K, 6K level, and we've got another hand which is definitely not a loose open, because I've got pocket kings in the +1 position. Absolute premium. I buff it up to 12K, and I get called by the low jack and the high jack, both of whom we cover for pretty nice bounties. So we're 3 ways to a flop of Jack 8-3 rainbow. Out of position to 2 people. I love checking my entire range over to them, getting the informational advantage of seeing what they do. So I check it, low jack checks, and the hijack goes ahead and bets 15. Now it's definitely tempting to check raise here, but I would just worry that if the opponent does have a Jack X hand, that they'll probably call a check raise now, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to stack off with that hand if they give up the betting lead. So we just don't want to let them off the hook if that happens. So I throw in the call, the low jack folds, and we heads up to a turn, which is a 6 of diamonds. I check it over to the villain, snap checks back really quickly, so we definitely have the best hand at this point. The river is the 8 of spades, pairing middle pair on the flop. Now I don't think it's somewhat possible the villain does have like 8-7 or ace-8 suited, but I think if we check it over to them, they're going to bet all of their Jack X hands too, and then we can put in the check raise, and I actually think we're more likely to stack them and win their $338 bounty that way than we would by just leading as a massive overbet here. And even if they do want to stab at it with like 9-8, we want to give them the opportunity to do that as well. So I go ahead and check it over to them. They go ahead and bet 30K. Now look, if they got an 8x, they're going to double up through us. I think we absolutely need to rip it all in, trying to stack worse pairs. Jack X, I think, might call off here now that we're this close to the river. So I decide to go for it. I'm all in for 90K, and then the hijack looks absolutely flabbergasted, like he didn't expect that at all. He does throw in the call. Let's go. We're winning this 261K pot, as well as the 338 banger. When I show my hand and then the villain shows pocket tens, definitely think we made the maximum off of that hand. You love to see it. So we are absolutely raking in these bounties, making so much EV. We've got our buy-in back at this point, which is absolutely beautiful, and we're not even in the money yet, which is the crazy nature of knockout tournaments. You love to see it. And this has got to sound like a massive first world problem, but one-eyed jacks kept paying me in like small denomination chips, so I just kept chucking them in a plastic bag in my pocket, and it's getting pretty big inside of my pocket. I know it's a first world problem, but if I could figure figure out like a way to pay us in bigger chips, or maybe just wait until we end up busting the tournament to pay us out. Maybe that'd be a bit of a room for improvement for the Sarasota doing the progressive knockouts. But again, it's a first world problem and we are crushing this tournament. Let's go. We are still at the 3k, 6k, 6k level, and even though we're on a new table, the same villain who said overset us, they go ahead and open the hijack to 15. And we do cover him at this point after running super hot. So when the action falls to my small blind, I peel pocket 8s. I do not want to be folding. I mean, hitting a set and stacking them would be great. And I do think they have a stronger range because they usually raise 2x, but they've raised over 2x. So I think their range is really strong here. Don't want to fold. I think it's a great spot to set mine, actually. Usually hate calling out of the small blind, but I think this is a great spot for it specifically, particularly when it's a shorter stacked big blind who we wouldn't mind overcalling, and then we can maybe win their bounty as well. So I throw in the call here, and then we are heads up to a flop of 4, 7, 8 with 2 spades. We hit a set again. We are smashing flops. You love to see it. I check it over to the villain who checks back. Now, even though they do check back, I don't think it's totally impossible that they do have an overpair and they're just trying to induce action from me, / play a bit of pot control, being that we're late in the tournament, they might not want to bust. So when we're off to a turn, it's a 2 of clubs. Definitely want to bet here. I think using a large size is really good as well. I go ahead and make it 20k. I think something closer to 40k would actually be much better sizing, just lowering that SPR against their overpairs. Whatever the case though, I made it 20k. And then the hijack raises to 60k, and our mouth is watering. I think it's very, very likely they do have an overpair in this spot. They only have 160 left in their stack, as well as that juicy $100 bounty. So I'm all in, baby, 160k. And then the hijack folds. So, absolutely brutal that they did get away from it. I don't know whether they were bluffing or they did have an overpair, but whatever the case, we are raking in yet another pot. And even if we didn't win a bounty this time, we're racking up the chips to win more bounties later. You love to see it. We have over 380k in our stack. This tournament is going phenomenally so far, and when the low jack rips it all in for 77k and the action folds to my button, we're probably going to be calling very wide here, trying to win their juicy 224 bounty, and then we peel pocket aces. Yeah, great spot for it. I throw in the call, then the villain shows Jack 10 suited, so we are in phenomenal shape. We got the live run out, and as you can see, a pretty sweatless flop, not even a heart there, and they're drawing dead on the turn, so we are raking in yet another bounty, as well as 175 pot, 224 in bounties. It's more small chips for the plastic bag. Let's go. We do have this massive bounty on our head. Fortunately though, I'm fairly certain we're chip leading at this table anyway, probably the tournament, so it's going to be hard for them to get us. You'll love to see it. We are up to the 4k, 8k, 8k levels. When I'm under the gun with pocket 5s, I buff it up to 16. And then the low jack rips it all in for 38k with a juicy 388 bounty. And then the hijack rips it all in themselves for 53k with a $100 bounty rather. So when the action falls back to me, of course, I'm not going to be folding this. Very concerned I'm behind to bigger pocket pairs. But if I'm not, and they both have overcards, we're in a great spot to pick up 2 potential bounties here. So I throw in the call, and we can see the hijack has pocket 3, so we actually have them dominated, and the low jack has a king 10 offsuit, so you love to see it. And then we see the run out there, and there's actually a king on the turn, so king 10 is going to win the pot. But because we had the hijack covered and we beat them with our 5s versus their 3s, we're getting in another bounty. So we lose chips on the pot, but we're collecting another huge 388 bounty. You love to see it. We are running hot even when we're running bad. That was such a huge bounty to get. We have $900 on our head now. Massive bounty, the biggest in the tournament for sure. We still have the big stack though, so plenty of opportunity for us to get more chips, but we definitely have to watch it, because if we do start to chip down and we have a small stack ourselves, it's probably going to be hard for us to get folds with such a big bounty. So this tournament is trucking along. We're up to the 5k, 10k, 10k level, and then the cutoff rips it all in for 95k with a very juicy 350 bounty. So when I'm on the button, I'm going to be ISOing very wide here, trying to get a heads up with them to try and win their bounty. So when I look down at Queen Jack offsuit, definitely strong enough to do it here. I rip it all in, just trying to price out both of the blinds who I also have covered. Fortunately, they do fold, so we're heads up with the cutoff, and then they show King Jack offsuit. So awful hand for us to be against. They have us dominated. dominated. But then the cutoff actually says to me, don't worry, you'll win this one. And I'm like, damn, you seem very not confident for such a dominated hand. But then look at the flop, queen on the flop. The villain ended up betting right. We ended up giving them the bad beat, and we are raking in a huge 350 bounty. Now the number on our head is over 1,000 bangers. Oh my god, we have such a massive number on our head, but I really cannot be complaining when we have a massive stack and we have a bunch of money in our pocket with the progressive format. You love to see it.
I already moved the button, right?
Yes, that was a button.
I need a player. Yeah, we definitely need to.
Will this momentum keep up for the rest of the tournament? There's only one way to find out. We're at the 10k, 15k, 15k level. The middle position opens it to 30 off of a 420 stack, so that's a lucky number. I'm going to be defending very wide here. No PL King Queen offsuit. It's definitely tempting to 3-bet with such a strong hand, but I think flatting's just a bit better. Let's keep the villain's range wider. So I throw in the call here, and then we heads up to a flop of Queen 4, deuce with 2 diamonds. You love to see it. I check it over to the villain who c-bets for 20. So less than a quarter the size of the pot. I'm feeling very confident that I do have the best hand. So I actually think it's a good spot to go ahead and check raise for value. If the opponent does have like pocket jacks or pocket tens, I don't think they're going to fold to just one check raise, particularly if I go small. Not totally impossible that they have a flush draw either. So I go ahead and make it 65k, and then the villain throws in the call. So we're off to a turn, which is a 6 of hearts, and I definitely want to continue betting. I think it might be hard to get more value from jacks and tens unless I go small here. So I definitely want to go small, but then again, if the opponent has a flush draw, we're going to give them a good price. Let me know how much you would bet below in the comments. I decided to make it 75k, and then the villain throws in the call. So we're off to a river, which is the 5 of diamonds. Absolutely hate seeing the front door flush get in. Now I think if the opponent, even if the opponent does have a hand we beat, like jacks or tens, they're just not going to be able to call a bet here when the obvious draw get in. So I check it over to them, and I'm honestly fingers and toes they cross that they check back, but then they rip it all in for 250k, and yep, I think they probably almost definitely have a flush here. I mean, if they are turning jacks or tens into a bluff, good move, mate. You got me off the best hand, but I think I'm just running into a flush way too often to call here. Even for the 308 bounty, I think I have to stay disciplined, and I actually end up snap folding my king queen here. This is the first big pot we've lost since the set over set hand, that hopefully we can get the momentum back going forward. One thing I did to try and build my stack up after losing that big hand is ripping it all in from late position or the blinds, just trying to take down the blinds pre-flop, since players were kind of trying to lock it up now that we only have one person left until the final table. So really just trying to take it down, and even if we do get called, it's going to be by a shorter stack, and even with any 2 cards, we have a chance to win one of their bounties, but just really trying to utilize that pressure of them trying to make the final table. So I ripped it in a few times and scooped down a few small pots to chip back up a little bit before this next hand. So we're still at the 10k, 15k level, and then the low jack, who was the same villain that beat us in the king queen hand, they go ahead and open limp, which is very interesting. I think they're planning to limp call if any of the short stacks shove, just trying to win bounties essentially. So when the button does rip it all in for 15k and 115 bounty, we definitely want to proceed very cautiously with our V pips. Normally I would love getting it in with any 2 cards against this villain, but I really have to worry about the one player at the table who stacks us, who has us covered here. But then we peel pocket tens in the small blind. This hand is definitely strong enough to want a VPip here. I raise it up to 80k. Gonna be cautious because if the other player does come over the top, they like definitely have premiums in their range, but then they end up folding, so let's go. The button ends up showing king 8 of hearts, so we are in great shape, and we end up holding to rake in this 75k pot, as well as another 150 bounty, as we literally head to the final table with by far the biggest bounty on our head. Let's go. So the transition over to the final table was actually rather easy, as we got randomly assigned our seeds. Anthony and Punk Gaming have a very easy system to put your bounty on the right street scene, so seamless transition here. We are going into this final table with by far the biggest bounty on our head, but we only have the 4th largest chip stack, so I think these things mean there's massive incentive for us to play really tight, essentially to try and ladder up pay jumps, and it's just we're not going to be able to get many folds, particularly from the players that cover us. So tight is right, definitely for this final table. Hopefully we're actually able to stick to that. You can see there someone at the final table has a $100 bounty in their head, so they've literally knocked out no one to get to the final table. Whatever the case, hopefully we can collect their bounty anyway. Let's get into the action. So we are still at the 10k, 15k, 15k level, and then under the gun limps, and when the action folds to my hijack with pocket sevens, definitely want to raise this one up. We do cover the villain for a 275 bounty. Would love to win that, so I go ahead and ISO it up to 55 bangers, and then only the under the gun player calls. So it heads up to a flop of ace 8 deuce with 2 clubs. When the villain checks it over to me, I actually think we have a pretty easy check back here. I think the villain's going to have a bunch of ace x hands in their limp call range, and if they don't though, we are probably just ahead, and I don't think they're going to call with a worse hand, so pretty easy check back. I went ahead and bet 35 here. I don't know why I did this, probably because I was on tilt and tired so far in the day. Whatever the case, I bet 35, and then what do you know, the villain rips it all in for 120k. Very easy snap fold here, and yeah, I don't know why I bet 35k. A little bit of a punt there. So the blinds are rising up. We are at the 10k, 20k, 20k level, and then the small blind goes ahead and raises it up to 40. I'm in the big blind with a jack 9 offsuit, and I think calling probably is the best play here, getting to play a pot in position. But the fact that the villain min opened out of position, I just got to figure they have a bloody weak hand, right? And I kind of want to pounce on that weakness, so I 3-bet it up to 115. And then I have instant regret when the villain throws in the call. So now we are playing a bloated pot when we should be playing tight at the final table with a very mediocre hand. Whatever the case though, we heads up to a flop of ace 8 7 with 2 diamonds. When the villain checks it over to me, even though I do have to have some worry about the villain having a bunch of ace x hands in their range, I think this is a very decent hand to stab with. We have equity with our gut shot against those hands anyway, and even if the villain does check rip it on us, like, we're pretty happy to just fold a gut shot. So I actually think this is a good spot to throw in a stab. I go ahead and make it 60, and then the small blind throws in the call. It's definitely not ideal. We're off to a turn which is a 6 of hearts, giving us an open-ended straight draw, and now I kind of love it because we got more equity. If the villain checks it over to me, I'm just going to check back and try and take a free river to suck out on their single pair hands, but that doesn't happen. The villain rips it all in for 225. I'm absolutely disgusted, but of course I have to fold at this point. I actually think it's very possible that the villain just has a straight themselves and we're drawing to 3 outs to chop, so pretty easy fold at this point. And yeah, definitely starting to punt a little bit at this final table, which is really what we should be avoiding. I mean, we are going to make money by folding when we have the 4th largest stack and just trying to ladder up as much as possible, and I'm just not exercising good patience so far. Hopefully it can turn around in the next hand though. So I do a good job of remaining patient, but unfortunately I keep blinding down, and I actually run pretty bad as a lot of the short stacks keep doubling up, including the gentleman who came into the final table with a $100 bounty. He doubled up twice with, you guessed it, pocket aces. So we do have 1 ladder up, by the way. There's 8 players left, but our stack has absolutely dwindled down to 120. So we are still at the 10k, 20k, 20k level, and then under the gun limps, and I'm in the +1 position with ace queen offsuit. We have 6 big blinds left and 1 move in our arsenal. We rip it all in, and then the action folds back to the under the gun player who throws in the call. I'm a little bit worried that they did trap with a premium, but when I show my hand, they show king 6 of clubs. So obviously they were planning to limp call because I have such a massive bounty on my head, which we don't mind getting the action, because if we get double up here, we will be back in the game. And then we are off to a flop which comes down 10 9 deuce with 2 spades. So we love to see it. We're in great shape against the king 6 till the turns a jack of clubs. So now they have a bunch more outs to get there. If they hit a club, they're good. If they hit a queen, they do have a bunch of outs now. We're just hoping for like a clean deuce on the river. Wouldn't mind hitting an ace either, and we are off to the river. This is our tournament on the line, and then the river is the 7 of clubs. Oh, they get there, they end up collecting our giant bounty, and we are out in the tournament in 8th place after what was a pretty epic run. Do think I punted way too hard at the final table, and I definitely could have done better than this if I was a bit more patient. Whatever the case, I can't complain at all. We do get 8th place money, as well as all of the money we'd already won from those bounties earlier. So pretty happy day overall, even if the final table performance was very lackluster. So there you have it. Those were the 8 hours of the Progressive Knockout Tournament. Really hope you guys gained some key knowledge on how to play the Progressive Knockout tournaments. You definitely want to be building up a big stack so you can take those big risks to try and win bounties. Do not try and emulate what I did at the final table if you're a middling stack. It's definitely better to play it a lot more cautious and just try to ladder up. Whatever the case though, we played 8 hours. Overall, very happy with my performance up until the final table. I think that's like an A+ grade before the final table than at the final table's like bloody probably a D grade. So overall, it's going to balance out. I'm going to give myself a B grade. Really wish I had to play better at the final table. Whatever the case, though, the remaining 7 players after me knocked one more bloke out before they did a 6-way chop. I wouldn't have done a chop with that many people left. I mean, depending on stack sizes and whatever case, they ended up chopping the winnings, and I ended up taking home a total of $1,202 profit after the buy-in with all the bounties and the 8th place money. It's definitely a good day and can't complain too much. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I put out 2 poker videos every single week. We are getting so much content out for you guys. Make sure you hit subscribe and you'll get it when it comes out. For now, though, if you do want to see another video of me running absolutely insanely hot at the One-Eyed Jacks in Sarasota, I'm going to put a video up on the screen now, so click that if you enjoy watching the sun runs. For now, though, I'm out of here. GG, Gamble Gang.